understand sort of this split inside the Republican Party and what Donald Trump has created here in this split, I just want to read you some of the reactions from some senators yesterday after watching the footage. Mike Rounds have continued to say that it is not constitutional to impeach and convict a former president. Ted Cruz, the result of this trial is preordained. Rick Scott, he's never said when somebody should break in. He actually said that people should do this peacefully. And then Roy Blunt, you have a summer where people all over the country were doing similar kinds of things. Is that the rationale that will be the dominant strain? And is this proof that many minds probably weren't changed?
Yeah, so reflect on their voters, Chuck, and thanks for having me, and really an honor to be with the panel today. Yeah, I heard some of this, and I can't imagine after what we saw in the Capitol that we've gone to quibbling. You know, it's a military term, too, you know, is that we're going to quibble on this type of stuff. We have something much bigger happening here, and we're talking about if our boots are shiny enough. That's sort of ridiculous. But I'm going to say something, and hear me out here. But I feel like it's almost like Jamie and Joe and the impeachment managers are actually making a case for conservatism. And let me explain this way. It seems like they're the ones that are saying we should conserve the republic. We should conserve the Western sort of institutions, really civilization, that we should conserve the constitutional law that we live under, that we should conserve the peaceful transfer of power. I've never seen anything like it. I'm looking at this going, this is what, if you're saying you're a Republican, a constitutional Republican, a constitutional conservative, the argument from Jamie, from Joe, from the impeachment managers, all of that looks like to me like it's what a real Republican would say in protecting our institutions. I just find it amazing that you're looking at all this evidence and you're absolutely somehow still quibbling about whether it's constitutional when he's already been impeached. And I'll just say this last thing about listening to Donna. We had a minimum of 7 white nationalist groups that were involved in the siege. 7, a minimum. And, you know, we put that report out, Chuck, and we've had this discussion before, but that's why, again, I'm appalled by this, but it's amazing to see the arguments by the impeachment managers.
And, Joyce, you're an experienced prosecutor, and this is not a court of law. It's a court of politics, if you will. But the Wall Street Journal editorial board says the impeachment managers laid out a solid case that there is no defense for Trump's conduct. So how do you vote no? Just to show what they said, there's no defense for Mr. Trump's conduct on January 6th and before. Mitch McConnell is reportedly telling his GOP colleagues that the decision to convict or acquit is a vote of conscience, and that's appropriate. After the Electoral College voted on December 14th, Mr. Trump could have conceded defeat and touted his accomplishments. Now, his legacy will be forever stained by this violence and by his betrayal of his supporters in refusing to tell them the truth. Joyce? That's powerful from the conservative editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch, and the conservative voice of the Journal, compared to his news pages. But it doesn't seem to be persuading any of the Republican senators so far.
Senator Whitehouse got it just right earlier on your program, Andrea. He said that if this was a criminal court, Trump's lawyers would have him hat in hand this morning coming to look for a plea deal. But obviously, we know it's not a criminal trial. We understand that some of the jurors will vote their political views and not the evidence. But I wonder if there's not a more subtle question that's been posed here by Congressman Raskin. When he tells this story about sitting with a Capitol police officer, and when he asks, is this America? There's another question, and that's who upheld their oath on January 6th. And there's a sharp contrast between what former President Trump did and what these Capitol police officers did, what individual members of Congress did, what staff on the Hill did. And I wonder if we won't have the chance to hear testimony from some of these Capitol police officers before it's all over. We're hearing their words. We're seeing them in video. House managers may well argue when they close and dare those senators to make a political vote to acquit the president in light of all of these brave people who went ahead and upheld their oaths at great personal risk on January 6th.
Congressman Riggleman, the top 2 Republicans in the Senate, Senate leadership, they at this point, they seem to be undecided. Here's what they've said.
I think they've done a good job connecting the dots. And, you know, the president's Twitter feed is a matter of public record, and they've done, you know, I think they said an effective job of going back several months and just showing that public record.
Do you have any sense of where Leader McConnell is on any of this?
You'll have to ask him.
Congressman, 30 seconds. Getting them on board, is that the only way there's a conviction?
That is the only way there's a conviction. And right now they're looking at all the phone calls coming into their offices. They're looking at what their committees are saying. They're looking at what the voters are saying in their district. And that's the thing you guys got here. They're voting for their political future, not for the country at this point. That's a shame. And it's really, are you going to be loyal to one individual? Are you going to be loyal to this kind of ridiculousness, or are you going to be loyal to the Constitution? The question's pretty stark. I think the answer is be loyal to the Constitution and the values that we want to uphold, which is that our institutions are bigger than any individual. But again, if it goes that way, it could sway some votes. But right now, I just don't see that happening.
Don Edwards, Denver Riggleman, Joyce Vance, thank you all. We're going to check back in with you 3 later this morning. That I promise. We're also going to dive into the strategy for the second.